Hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Deep and Effective Big Book Study. I'm your host, a recovered alcoholic, and this is going to be episode 10, my friends, which is part 2 of There Is a Solution. If you joined in for the last episode, we did There Is a Solution part 1, which we went all the way up to page 23, and this is where we separate the first part into 2 steps. And today's episode is going to be almost entirely devoted to the second part of the first step, which is the mental obsession, the insanity, the unmanageability of the mind. And as always, we're going to let the big book and our experience be our voice. So let's go ahead and get God into this thing, and I'm going to open this all up with the set-aside prayer. So let's take a quick moment of silence, my friends, and we'll get this thing going. God, please help me set aside everything I think I know about myself, my disease, the 12 steps, and especially you, so I may have an open mind and a new experience with all these things. Please let me see the truth. All right. We are off and running now. Hey guys, as always, I'm going to drop in my email. It's recoveredalcoholic1939@gmail.com. Questions, comments, concerns, don't hesitate. Looking for sponsorship, men and women. I say this all the time, but ladies, I can get you hooked up with some strong women in the program. All solution-based stuff. There's 2 meetings that I attend weekly. One is on Thursdays at 6 p.m. Central. All men step study. Here is the Zoom code and password. Also on Sundays at 6 p.m. Central, men and women, I tend to step study, and here is the code and password for that as well. And if you haven't had an opportunity already to please like, subscribe, and share this video, it will help out the channel immensely and help with YouTube's algorithms to get it exposed to more people. And we're going to be coming off of page 25, as always, because this is the Deep and Effective Big Book Study, and we're going to see exactly where this comes from. So page 25, middle of the page, the great fact is just this and nothing less. We have had deep and effective spiritual experiences, which have revolutionized our whole attitude toward life, toward our fellows, and toward God's universe. The central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty that our Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. He has commenced to accomplish those things for us which we could never do by ourselves. Boy, if that ain't first step in a nutshell right there. Okay, guys, we've got everything out of the way. Let's get right down to business. So if you got your book, fantastic. We're going to jump to page 23, and this is where we're going to pick up and get rolling. So in the last episode, let's recap a little bit, right? If you're just tuning in, you're not familiar with how this works, is that we have to remember that the first step is broken up into 2 parts, therefore it requires a 2-part explanation. And when we look at the step in its entirety, you can look on page 59 where it says, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol. There's that little dash, which is known as a hyphen, and then it says that our lives had become unmanageable, right? So the first part of the first step deals almost exclusively, well, it does deal exclusively with the phenomenon of craving, the physical allergy. This is the powerlessness that we're talking about. So the second part of the first step deals with the mental obsession, right? So on top of page 23 is where we separate the step. Excuse me, guys. When we have the paragraph which says, therefore, the main problem the alcoholic centers his mind rather than his body. And this is what we're going to be getting into exclusively now from here on all the way to the chapter We Agnostic. Because the entire rest of the chapter and entire chapter 3 is devoted almost entirely, I keep saying entire a lot, don't I, to the mental obsession. So I'm going to pick up on the paragraph on page 23 where it says, once in a while, I'm going to start there. And we're going to start to see this obsession that we're talking about, the unmanageability of the mind. Once in a while, he may tell the truth. And the truth, strange to say, is that usually that has no more idea why he took the first drink, right? That's that one drink, than you have. Some drinkers have excuses, which they are satisfied part of the time. But in their hearts, they really do not know why they do it. Can you relate to that? You ever ask yourself, why do I keep doing this? Why does my life look like it does? You ever had that honest conversation with yourself? I have. Or others. And here it is. Once the malady has a real hold, They are a baffled lot. We have these expressions called strange mental blank spots. We also have another expression called cunning and baffling powerful. This is what we're talking about, right? See, the disease of alcoholism, right? It exists in my brain somewhere that I can't, for some reason, I can't explain why, I can't somehow get in contact with it. It hides from me, right? And this is what it's a strange mental blank spot. It's beyond my conception, right? It's hiding out in there somewhere. And listen to this. There is the obsession that somehow, someday, that they will beat the game. But they often suspect they are down the line. So we're going to read later in the book about how many of us will pursue this into the gates of insanity or death. Right? This is what we're talking about here. This obsession that somehow, someday, I'm going to make this work. I'm going to figure out how to make something that doesn't work in my life work. Right? That is the great obsession of every abnormal drinker, to control and enjoy his drinking. And that's later on page 30. But we're starting to see where that's going to play in right here. I'm going to read this last paragraph. How true is this is, few realize in a vague way their families and friends sense that these drinkers are abnormal. That's what's wrong with me. I'm abnormal. But everybody hopefully awaits the day when the sufferer will rouse himself from his lethargy and assert his power of will. And I got to tell you, it ain't going to happen. If you're the real deal, you're the real alcoholic, it ain't going to happen, because my willpower is of absolutely no avail to the disease of alcoholism. And listen to the last sentence. The tragic truth is that if the man be a real alcoholic, and I've expressed the absolute need and necessity to understand there's a difference between the real alcoholic and everything else. It says the happy day may not arrive. Go on to 24, and I'm going to read probably the next few paragraphs verbatim, because they're very, very important. And this stuff ain't highlighted in your book. It needs to be. He has lost control. At a certain point in the drinking of every alcoholic, he passes into the state where the most powerful desire to stop drinking is of absolutely no avail. Absolutely. That is a word you cannot interpret, can you? They meant what they said. They put on paper exactly what they meant to tell us. This is not open to interpretation. The tragic situation has already arrived in practically every case long before it's suspected. Can you relate to that? Do you have the most powerful desire to not drink? Have you tried that? Right? Because this is something that I need to establish within myself. Now, this next paragraph is huge. The fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice in drink. So if you can say, I'm so-and-so, and I woke up today and chose not to drink, and you can do that, well, then you're not a real alcoholic. See, because this is what we need to talk about, right? Is that I am without the power. I will never be able to choose whether I am going to drink or not, which means that I am going to drink no matter what. This whole, the no matter what club that GSO has given us, which is such a dismal failure on your part, GSO, for this, the no matter what club. No, that totally contradicts what the program is teaching us. The program teaches us that if you're the real alcoholic, you're gonna drink. I'll keep reading. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. Listen to this, guys. We are unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness with the sufficient force the memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. We are without defense against the first drink. No mental defense. This is what the unmanageability is all about in the second part of the first step. If you are the real alcoholic, you are screwed, my friend, just like me. So another lie that we hear in the meetings is this, think the drink through. Well, I'm here to tell you, if you're the real alcoholic, you don't have the ability to do that. This is what this paragraph is telling me. Or if you can't remember your last drunk, you haven't had it. What a bunch of crap that is. See, because my book tells me, my program tells me that as I'm going to forget my last drunk. That's the problem. I'm not going to remember what chaos and consequences come from my drinking. This is the problem. The main problem the alcoholic center is in his mind. This is what the unmanageability is about. The insanity, the obsession. I'll keep reading this next sentence, or next couple sentences. The almost certain consequences that follow taking even a glass of beer. Do not crowd into the mind. See, the consequences don't precede anything. Right? I'm going to pose a question to everybody out here right now. Does anybody, raise your hand, does anybody out there make really bad decisions when you drink? I got both hands up right now, my friends. But think about this. See, I make the most insane decision completely sober. Right? And that's the decision to pick up the first drink in the first place. Right? This is what we're talking about. See, the consequences follow the insanity, the unmanageability of me not being able to not drink. I'm going to jump down to the last paragraph on 24. Listen to the words here. When this sort of thinking, not drinking, this sort of thinking, because here's the problem, is fully established in an individual with alcoholic tendencies, he has probably placed himself beyond human aid, right? Repeated over and over and over in the book. No human power, which means not a group of drunks. That means it doesn't matter how many meetings I go to and how many people are in that meeting. That's still human power. I'll keep reading. And unless locked up, may die or go permanently insane. So here's my options again. Cage or a coffin. That's the end result of alcoholism. Listen to this. These stark and ugly facts, these aren't our opinions. That's not my opinion either. The facts of my life is everything that I read in this book applies to me, man. The facts have been confirmed by legions of alcoholics throughout history. But for the grace of God, there have been many thousands more convincing demonstrations. So many want to stop but cannot. I'll keep reading on 25. There is a solution. And here it is, friends. Almost none of us like the self-searching, the leveling of our pride, the confession of shortcomings which the process requires for its successful consummation. And I'm going to bring out my little handy-dandy big book dictionary right now and read the definition of consummation. Right? And then we're going to reread the sentence. Completion, finish, fulfillment, an ultimate end or goal. Right? What is my ultimate end or goal? Is it sobriety? No. My ultimate end or goal is recovery. Sobriety is the inevitable byproduct of that. My ultimate goal is a relationship with God. And listen to what it tells me right here. Right? Process requires for successful... So this is what's required of me. Not drinking and going to meetings. That's not what's required of me. That will get you nowhere if you're a real alcoholic. It's that simple. I'm going to finish reading this. It says, but we saw that it really worked in others. And we had come to believe in the hopelessness and futility of life as we've been living it. So you have to ask yourself, have I come to believe that the way I'm living my life is hopeless and futile? Right? These are first step experience questions that we need to be having within ourselves. And this is my responsibility as a sponsor to be posing these questions to you. Right? Because if you don't feel you're hopeless, then why on earth would you need to seek hope? If you don't feel you're powerless, why on earth would you need to seek power? Right? You're not going to, just like I wouldn't either. I only became willing to do the work in this book when I felt that I did not have another choice. I'm completely out of options. You know, we have the word suggestion and suggestive in the book, and it gets taken out of context quite a bit. But when one of the many definitions is it's also known as a viable option. So if you're here, you showed up to AA like me without any options, then we have something that we can offer you. A successful option at that. I'll keep reading. When therefore we are approached by those with whom the problem had been solved. This is what a recovered alcoholic is. I'm a person who my problem has been solved. There was nothing left for us but to pick up the simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. That's again, it goes back to this role of sponsorship, right? That's just my role in your life. That's my responsibility, is to present this program to you. It's completely up to you what you decide to do with it. But because your sobriety has no dependence upon mine, right? Whether you make it or not has no effect on my recovery. See, I have a 100% success rate with every person I've ever worked with. Whether they stayed sober or not, I'm still here. I'm still staying in a state of recoveredness. Is that even a word, recoveredness? Let me read. We've found much of heaven and have been rocketed in the fourth dimension of existence of which we had not even dreamed. Right? Bill Wilson talks about the fourth dimension of existence in his story. And this is what it's about, right? It's got nothing to do with just not drinking, right? I need something completely different. I need to be existing in the fourth dimension of existence, right? And again, this is what I read in every meeting. So I'm going to read it again because it's so vitally important, right? This is what the program gives, right? We read on it just a minute ago about the successful consummation, right, what the process requires. Well, I'm going to show you exactly what success will look like. That's what these next two paragraphs are about. It's about the end result of what the steps will do for us. It's this. It's a great fact. It's just this and nothing less, that we've had deep and effective spiritual experiences. And there's a little asterisk right there, and we're going to address that here in a minute, which have revolutionized our whole attitude toward life, toward our fellows, and toward God's universe. The central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty that our Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. He has commenced to accomplish those things for us which we could never do by ourselves. So, this never do by myself, this goes back to that no human power, no amount of willpower. We just go on and on and on with this. Next paragraph. It's a very important question. If you are seriously alcoholic as we were, that's a question. Do you believe you are seriously an alcoholic as the writers of this book, the authors of this book? I'll keep reading. We believe that there's no middle of the road solution, right? We were in a position where life was becoming impossible. Do you believe that your life has become impossible? Do you believe that you've become hopeless? This is all first step experience questions. If I don't believe that my life's impossible, then I don't need this shit. And we'd pass into the region from which there was no return through human aid. I just keep talking about no human aid, no group of drunks. And we could go on and on and on about all these little catchphrases and one-liners that they want to tell people in mainstream alcoholics. And I got to tell you, it's a lie. It's nothing more than a lie. And here's, we have but two alternatives. One, you can go on to the bitter end. And when I showed up to Alcoholics Anonymous, I felt I was at the bitter end, right? Because it's only my pain made me willing, right? Blotting out the consciousness of my intolerable situation. Do I find my situation intolerable? Do you find your situation intolerable? Or I could do this other thing they're about to offer. I could accept spiritual help. Right? It's not just about accepting the spiritual help. Turn the page, because there's some important words that go with this. We did this because we honestly wanted to. So there's the foundation principle of honesty, and then there's that need and the want, right? I talked about it in many, many examples, right? Bill Wilson talks about the need and the want. Dr. Bob talks about the need and the want. Alcoholic number 3 talks about the need and the want, right? Just needing this ain't enough. I gotta want it. And we were willing to make the effort. We're about to read a story about a gentleman named Roland Hazard. He was, if you don't know much about the history, he's a very important member in the development of early Alcoholics Anonymous, right? He's part author of this book, and he just played a vital role. And I'm gonna pick out a couple things in his story. And what he did was, he came from a very wealthy background. So what he was able to do was seek out the greatest minds in psychology and psychiatry and just about anything that could perhaps help him with his alcoholism. And one of the gentlemen that he pursued was Dr. Jung, and who was pretty much the utmost authority in the world of psychiatry back then, right? And to get his advice, to get his, for him to get help. And even Jung was telling him, hey, I can't help you. You need something greater than human power. And this is kind of the essence of his story. And I'm going to pick up on 26 there in the middle of the page. It says, so he returned to the doctor whom he admired and asked him point blank why he could not recover. He wished above all things to regain self-control, right? Do you have that desire? I don't want to drink anymore. Or as I'm still kind of entertaining the idea of not drinking, right? He said he wished above everything. Not being a slave to alcohol was the most important thing in his life, is what he's telling us. Listen to this. He seemed quite rational and well-balanced with respect to other problems. Well, there goes your smashing the stereotype of what an alcoholic is, isn't it? And that just completely smashes what the unmanageability that we hear about in the rooms is. No. Again, my external conditions have nothing to do with the unmanageability. Nothing. It says, yet he had no control whatever over alcohol. Why was this? There's a question mark right there. It's because of step one. Because he's a real alcoholic. This is why he has no control. He has a body that can't process alcohol normally, and he has a mind that can't keep him away from it. Alcoholism. Listen, he begged the doctor to tell him the whole truth, and he got it. In the doctor's judgment, he was utterly hopeless. See, the program is not even for alcoholics. It's for hopeless alcoholics. He could never regain his position in society, and he would have to be placed under lock and key or hire a bodyguard if he expected to live long. Right? Again, look at the ultimate outcome of alcoholism. Cage or coffin, pretty much. That was the great physician's opinion. Listen to this. But this man still lives, and he's a free man. He does not need a bodyguard, nor is he confined. He can go anywhere on this earth where other free men may go without disaster. That's my experience today as well. And top of 27, I'm going to split this sentence. Because he says, right, you're a free man, I may go anywhere without disaster. Stop right there. There's some conditions that come with that. Provided he remained willing to maintain a certain simple attitude. And we've established in other episodes in the book that the attitude that I have to adopt is an attitude of willingness. So again, sobriety, recovery is not a free gift. I have to work for it. There's some conditions and requirements that I have to meet. And the book lays them out crystal clear what they are. We'll keep reading. Some of our alcoholic readers may think they can do without spiritual help. Let us tell you the rest of the conversation our friend had with his doctor. So if you're out there and you still think that you can do without spiritual help, well, congratulations. My best of luck to you is all I can say. But if you're the real alcoholic, you might pursue that into the gates of insanity or death, trying to prove that you don't need spiritual help. Something to think about. There's another thing that we need to remember is that, there's some people that just ain't going to make it. This disease kills people every single day. So some of you ain't going to make it. That's just the cold, hard truth of it. He said, the doctor said you have the mind of a chronic alcoholic. Again, real alcoholic. I've never seen one single case recover where the state of mind existed to the extent that it does in you, right? Not one single case. The real alcoholic is going to pull themselves together. This is why it's so important that we learn to separate alcoholism from everything else. I'll just keep reading. Our friend felt as though the gates of hell had closed on him with a clang. He said to the doctor, is there no exception? Yes, replied the doctor, there is. Exceptions to such cases as yours have been occurring since early times. And here's the exceptions, guys. This is what's going to happen. Here and there, once in a while, alcoholics have had what are called vital spiritual experiences. To me, these occurrences are phenomenon. They appear to be in the nature of huge emotional displacements and rearrangements. Ideas, emotions, and attitudes were once the guiding force of their lives of these men suddenly cast to one side, and a completely new set of conceptions and motives begin to dominate them. What they just described is what a spiritual experience looks like. What they just described is what the end result of taking these 12 steps. Remember, if you go to page 60 and read the 12th step, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, they just described what that's going to look like for you in your life, because it's exactly what it looks like in my life. I'll keep reading. In fact, I've been trying to produce some of the emotional rearrangements within you. With many individuals, these methods which I employ are successful. The individuals that he's referring to are non-alcoholics. He's talking about hard drinkers and other ailments and disorders. But I have never been successful with an alcoholic of your description. And we are learning about the description of the real alcoholic. You with me? And there's that asterisk again. So let's jump over to page 567 real quick, guys. And this is the spiritual experience, okay? This came out in the second printing of the first edition. It wasn't in the original book. And there's some very important information within this, okay? And I've talked about it in, I believe, maybe the first episode. But I want to jump over to 568 and look at something, right? We talked about the willingness, the honesty, and the open-mindedness, right? This picture that you're seeing on the screen right now, this wonderfully effective spiritual structure that talks about on page 47, right? These foundation principles that I keep talking about over and over and over. This is where we're getting it from, right? So on page 568, I'm going to start with the paragraph. Most emphatically, we wish to say that any alcoholic capable of honestly facing his problems in the light of our experience can recover, provided he does not close his mind to other spiritual concepts. He can only be defeated by an attitude of intolerance or belligerent denial. And here it is. This is the most simplest way that we can talk about the steps and the path to recovery. We find that no one need to have difficulty with the spirituality of the program. Willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness are the essentials of recovery, but these are indispensable, right? It's about the hopeless nature of alcoholism. And this simple program, if I apply it into my life, I will recover from alcoholism. So let's jump back to page 27. Upon hearing this, our friend was somewhat relieved, for he reflected that after all, he was a good church member. This hope however, was destroyed by the doctors telling him that while his religious convictions were good, in this case, it did not spell the necessary vital spiritual experience. So again, my faith alone will be of absolutely no avail in combating the disease of alcoholism, right? And I've seen this so many times in my experience. And this is not a slur on anything or anyone, but I've seen people come into the program and they start putting their religion before their program, and they get drunk. Guaranteed every single time. Not that there's anything wrong with putting religion in my life or anything like that. But if I think just my faith is all I need, it's not. So let's jump over to page 28. And we're going to start off with the paragraph, we in our turn, which is, we're going to read the second Titanic reference that Bill Wilson gave us, right? This is some very important stuff. It says, we in our turn sought the same escape with all the desperation of drowning men. See, that's what hopelessness is about. Are you here today with the desperation of a drowning man? Yes or no? Because if the answer is no, you're not going to do this work. I'll keep reading. What seemed at first the flimsy reed has proved to be the loving and powerful hand of God. You see, so the flimsy reed is sobriety. The flimsy reed is just not drinking. The flimsy reed is the meeting, right? And that's fine. That's what gets you in the door. That's what got me in the door, right? Because I don't understand the gravity of the situation. I don't understand alcoholism. I just know that I'm drinking myself to death and I'm miserable, right? But I don't know that the solution is going to be the loving and powerful hand of God, right? That's a flimsy reed, right? And this idea that we're not supposed to be talking about God in meetings and to the newcomer, that's all I'm supposed to be talking about. I'm supposed to be talking about this program and how it gets me hooked up to God. That's my responsibility. My responsibility is not to sugarcoat this and water it down. So I'm going to keep reading on 28. Kind of in the middle there, guys. We have no desire to convince anyone that there's only one way by which faith can be acquired. If what we have learned, right, that's from experience, and felt, and seen, means anything at all, it means that all of us, whatever our race, creed, or color, are the children of a living Creator with whom we may form a relationship upon simple and understandable terms as soon as we are willing and honest enough to try. And that's been my experience, right? This is what the program keeps talking about. I'm here to form a relationship with some type of power, God in my understanding, because that's my solution. We are in the chapter, there is a solution, and we're telling us it's God. That's all they ever tell us. Bottom of 28. In the following chapters, there appears an explanation of alcoholism as we understand. There's that we. That's that it ain't me and you, it's them. which means we ain't interested in what the treatment center says. We ain't interested in what the court says. We ain't interested in what the Mr. Long-Term Sobriety guy says. I'm only interested in what this book says. I'm only interested in their experience. Then a chapter addressed to the agnostic. Many of us were once in that class, or now among our members. Surprisingly enough, we find such convictions no great obstacle to a spiritual experience. And boy, that's been my story. See, you know, I'm the guy that come into AA. I don't want to hear about God. I don't want to talk about God. The hell with you and the hell with God. And I meant it. And this program has worked for me, right? So all I needed was that mustard seed of willingness, right? You know, the reality of it is that if I really think about it and look at my life and what has been accomplished since coming and turning my will and my life over to this program, right, and God of my understanding, is that the work I've put in doesn't even compare to the rewards I've seen. This program is so beautiful. It's just an amazing thing. Let's finish up this page, guys. Further on are clear-cut directions. This ain't open to interpretation. When they meant what they said, clear-cut directions. This thing doesn't need to be reinvented, ad-libbed, embellished, or anything else. Clear-cut. Showing how we recovered. Well, there's your answer to how you recovered right there, HOW. They're going to show me honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. That's how I'm going to recover. These are followed by 42 personal experiences. See how important that word experience is? And let's look at what they're about to tell us. It says, each individual in his personal stories describes in his own language and from his own point of view the way he established a relationship with God. It doesn't say that the stories say how he got sober. The stories aren't the instructions on how to get sober. They're talking about how they established a relationship with God. And I'm going to jump over to page 50 and show you a little cross-reference of what I'm talking about. They talk about it again on 50. It says, in our personal stories, you will find a wide variation in which each teller approaches and conceives of the power which is greater than himself. That's what the stories are about. Right? Especially when they wrote the first edition. See, a lot of the stories in the books today, they might represent the fellowship, but they sure as hell don't represent the program. Because there's a bunch of nonsense in stories in the 4th edition. But when they gave us this original book and the original message, that's all the stories had to do with. Right? I'm not here to represent the fellowship or the membership. I'm here to represent the program. I'll finish up. So we hope no one will consider these self-revealing accounts in bad taste. Our hope, this is my hope, their hope, this should be your hope, is that many alcoholic men and women desperately in need. Do you find yourself desperately in need? Yes or no? We'll see these pages and we believe that it's only by fully disclosing ourselves and our problems that they will be persuaded to say yes. Yes, I am one of them too. I must have this thing. Let's break that up into 2 questions. It says, yes, I'm one of them too. What are they? What are the authors of this book? We're establishing it. I've been pounding the table today over this. These are real alcoholics. And this says, I must have this thing. What is this thing that they have? What is this thing they keep describing over and over and over? It's not sobriety. They have recovery. What they have is a relationship with God. So ask yourself these 2 questions. Are you one of these people? And do you want this? Because if you can't answer successfully, we're not going to move on. First step is vital. 2 through 12 are absolutely useless until I truly believe I'm hopeless, my friends. So that's going to wrap up. There is a solution, my friends. I appreciate you staying with me. Again, if you haven't had an opportunity to please like, subscribe, and share, it will help out the channel immensely. I'll drop in my email again, recoveredalcoholic1939@gmail.com. Please, any questions, comments, concerns you might have, I'm happy to help. And I'll leave you with this. Bottom of page 164, may God bless and keep you until then. So take care and much love.